Sports columnist Dylan Hernández over at the LA Times joining us right now on FT. Also has a podcast to check out. Look it up, called North and South. Dylan, great to have you on the show. I don't even know what Kratz is doing right now. I do know what he's doing, but I'm actually going to try and at least ask you one spicy question so that people that just check out this segment can get your true thoughts on. You've covered Roki Sasaki and followed his story for a while now. So thanks for joining us. But do you think that there was ever a chance he was going to sign anywhere but the Dodgers?
I kind of did. I think, looking back at it now, probably not, because I think basically kind of came down to like one simple question, right? Was he kind of comfortable playing like with Ohtani? And I think we kind of have to look at this from kind of the context, where he kind of fits in Japanese baseball in terms of, him being a generational talent, right? And he's kind of the generational talent that the country produced after Ohtani. And this would almost kind of be like, I don't know, if Michael Jordan was on a team and they drafted LeBron, right? Would these guys feel comfortable? Would LeBron try to, go to a different team and beat the guy? It's almost kind of like that in a way. And the thing is, with Sasaki, we don't know too much about him. Ohtani was, I know kind of the LA media right now occasionally kind of complains about how Ohtani's not very accessible necessarily. But he spoke a lot in Japan. So, he kind of had like a fully formed public persona by the time he came here. Sasaki hasn't talked very much, and I think the media there hasn't pushed him too much either, in part because of his backstory with the tsunami and him having lost his father and some grandparents there. It's a culture obviously based on consideration. So, Sasaki hasn't talked very much. And just because of that, I just kind of didn't know exactly what it was that drove him, how much would he be concerned about, again, like legacy. At this point he's probably going to be more of an extension of Ohtani's legacy than anything, right? He's going to be Scottie Pippen kind of to Michael Jordan maybe. So just because of that, I was kind of unsure.
All right, Dylan, I actually have two questions for you. First one is, when was this done? Was this done months ago? And you're going to say no because you're a Dodger fan and you're a Sasaki fan, but was this done months ago? Because people have been talking about this for months, that it was a done deal. So why did he go through all the process if this was already such a done deal?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? There were certainly whispers around the game that, that they had something kind of like lined up. Obviously, the Dodgers, in the previous international signing period, left about $2.5 million that they had, kind of earmarked maybe for Sasaki. Obviously, they'd kind of been around. I think, I believe, the Lotte Marines had kind of sent coaches, and even their manager, I believe, kind of spent some time in the Dodgers camp. So, and I believe Friedman last year at the, when Andrew Friedman went over when the WBC, or the year before when the WBC team was training, at least said hi to the kid. I do think that, right, the fact that the commissioner's office moved this into the 2025 signing period, it did at least kind of like balance the scales a little bit, I think, in terms of, right, everybody had their international money available. They had the chance to talk this kid into it. I don't think necessarily that, right, the kid would have necessarily been obligated. Let's say there was anything like that going on. I'm not really sure he would have been obligated to like honor that type of agreement if it moved into this signing period. Now I do think, when one thing with Japanese players a lot is that, money's kind of not the be all end all for these guys. Obviously, if they were for Sasaki, he would have come here 2 years earlier, similar to, or 2 years later, sorry, similar to Ohtani, right? He came here as 23, instead of kind of getting the $200 million contract, he got a, $2 million signing bonus. Kind of one thing that I kind of heard, say take last year with Yamamoto, when he first got posted, I talked to somebody kind of in his circle and they were kind of saying, 75-25 Dodgers Yankees. And it kind of played out that way. And I think a lot of it was just, he was a fan of that team. I heard, with Senga when he came, when he got posted, that he was a big fan of the DeGrom, Syndergaard Mets. And, that was the team he wound up signing with. So, I think that the kid himself had some ideas about where he wanted to go and probably just kind of followed that.
Makes sense. It makes sense. Before you say the money doesn't care, then he can give the $2 million back to the Blue Jays that they traded for from the Guardians and wasted because they didn't sign him. So have Sasaki just shoot him over $2 million to make up for that, because I'm sure Toronto fans are super excited. But where does Sasaki rank? Because in your article you said he has a chance to be the best Japanese pitcher ever. Now, I caught Yu Darvish when he first came over, and he was unbelievable. There were some things he has kind of figured out as he got older, pitch selection, stuff like that. But is Sasaki really better than Yu Darvish? Because when people ask me who the best stuff I've ever caught was, it's Yu Darvish by far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think kind of when you take everything, right? I think I'll say this, right? I think the image of like the Japanese pitcher for the most part is kind of somebody kind of crafty, right? Obviously they throw a lot of innings, which kind of helps them, I think, develop early in their career. Sasaki has a body, right? He's 6'3", 6'4", and he's the type of kid who I think had he been born in the United States, gone to like an American high school, he would have been a candidate to be drafted 1-1, right? And, in my mind, there are probably two other guys from Japan that kind of fit that category. One of them, like you mentioned, is Darvish. The second one being Ohtani, and this is probably the third guy. In terms of, he's got velocity, obviously, that's kind of next level. He's hit 102. He was throwing 100 in high school. And I just kind of think there's a smoothness to his pitching motion that just feels very natural. When I see him, pitch, and I the first time I saw him was in high school. It kind of looked like Griffey swinging the bat, right? There's just something. He's got a very high leg kick, yet it's a very repeatable delivery. Now what's interesting about Sasaki is that kind of unlike Darvish, generally speaking in Japan, because a pitcher pitches only once a week, they tend to let him go a little bit more, right? And a lot of these pitchers come here having pitched a lot of innings. Darvish had, I believe, like close to like 1,200 innings in Japan when he came over to the United States. This kid has thrown fewer than 400 innings. So the experience gap is pretty substantial, I think, but in terms of just like raw materials, yeah, when you look at him like athletically, I mean, I saw the kid, I think, and this was just like in a high school game, whatever. So, but he hit a triple and you see him run. This kid is an athlete, and I just kind of think when you put everything together, yeah, at this point, I do think he has a chance. Obviously durability is going to be a big part of that. He hasn't shown he can stay healthy at this point. But in terms of just the raw materials, I do think he has more maybe than any other Japanese pitcher before him.
I want to confirm that your top three is who you said it was, and you're leaving Yamamoto and my good friend Masahiro Tanaka out of that top three, correct? Masahiro Tanaka, the Koshien, possibly the greatest Koshien pitcher of all time?
Well, Matsuzaka is probably the best, right? But Yamamoto, smaller guy, right? He was a fourth round pick in Japan, and again, we're just kind of talking about like the raw tools here. Matsuzaka, again, just with how much he pitched and stuff, was probably the best like 20-year-old since maybe Dwight Gooden, right? In terms of just kind of refinement and stuff. But yeah, in terms of just like raw tools, to me, those three guys kind of stand above everybody else just in terms of their physical frame. I mean, they're as big as, any American player, right? I mean, you look at Ohtani right now and you're not thinking like, oh, he's big for a Japanese guy. You just think like that guy's big. And this kid has, he's very skinny right now, but he has a very projectable frame, I think, that can fill out nicely.
Did he feel stalled in Japan? Did he feel like his development was stalled? Because we've heard in the last few days, like he wants to go to the place where his development, figure out why his velocity went down. Was he stalled, or was he just like, all right, now it's time for me to go face the best players in the world in Major League Baseball?
Yeah, so that to me, his development to me has been very interesting because it has been atypical for a Japanese player, right? And usually kind of in that Koshien tournament that you mentioned earlier, or even like in the prefecture playoffs to get there, you have an ace, you pitch that guy every day. Now, Sasaki's high school coach played independent ball in the United States, and I do believe that he was influenced by that. And, actually in the Iwate Prefecture Championship game, I believe Sasaki had maybe pitched the day before. That manager elected to not pitch Sasaki in the championship for a chance to go to Koshien. Big national controversy in Japan. But I think the manager's attitude was, hey, this kid has a chance to be a millionaire. I'm not going to risk it over a high school tournament. And when he joined Chibalote, they kind of took a similar approach with him, right? I think they treated him the way American teams treat their young arm talent, right? His first year, he did not pitch at all. And over there's less transparency about injuries and stuff. So to this day, nobody knows why he didn't pitch. He did not throw a single competitive pitch, his first year. And then over the next 4 years, again, right, he threw a total of 394 innings. That's fewer than 100 a year. Part of that was injuries, but I think also, the team again was careful, right? A couple years ago, he pitched a perfect game. He was about to pitch another perfect game in his very next start, and they pulled him with an inning to go out of concern over pitch count. So I think kind of the agreement that he had with Chibolote was, hey, look, I eventually want to go to the major leagues. I don't want to be burned out, right, have my arm just kind of fall off, at that point. And I think they had an agreement to kind of bring him along slowly. And so, yeah, to me, this isn't so much that he was stalled in Japan. I think it was, they treated me in a way that would best prepare me to kind of, right, still have enough when I come over here. I do think a lot of the Japanese pitchers that have come here over the years, Matsuzaka being a good example, probably pitched a little too much when they were in Japan. By the time they kind of came here, they were already kind of slightly on a decline. And so, yeah, to me, this is kind of more, I think in his mind at least, hey, this is the time for me to kind of really go for it now. And in terms of like the development thing, I think, because he hasn't pitched as much as those other guys, he is a little bit on the raw side, right? Compared to, again, most guys with similar experience that have come here at that point. I mean, even Ohtani, I believe, had 500 plus innings at that point. So even compared to Ohtani, who was a two-way player, this kid hasn't pitched all that much, and so I just think he's kind of trying to project ahead, and also to go to a place that isn't going to get him hurt. Now with the Dodgers, obviously you could see it both ways. I mean, they've taken a lot of guys, not high draft picks, and turned them into major league quality arms. Yet, you look at kind of the injury history of their homegrown guys. There's some reason from concern there, but obviously the Dodgers were able to, make him feel comfortable with what they got going on there.
All right, so he went to the Dodgers. What was all the stuff about him wanting a small market team? And if he wanted a small market team, he could have just gone to the Angels like Shohei did and been out covered by the Dodgers. So he could have hid like Shohei did a little bit in Anaheim. Not that Shohei was able to hide in Anaheim, but was any of that stuff true about, him wanting to go to a smaller team? And maybe he saw what Shohei did by going to a smaller market, and then going to the bigger market pushed him more to the Dodgers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think we're expecting there to be an introductory presser tomorrow, and we'll ask him those questions. Again, we don't know too much about this kid. I think part of this was based on the fact, again, that he's from the countryside in Japan. The area that he's from, right? Ohtani's also from. Not a ton going on over there. Kind of small, quiet towns. And again, in Japan, he did not deal with the media all that much, right? He did not. And so I think when you kind of look at those things, and again, his reluctance to kind of talk about his origin story, specifically with that tsunami in 2011, I think that there was some speculation that he might not want to be in the spotlight. The other way to look at it here with the Dodgers is, there's going to be, Ohtani's obviously the face of this thing. You got Betts, you got Friedman, you got a ton of these other guys. And even for the Japanese reporters that cover Ohtani and the Dodgers, they're going to have to split their attention now between three different guys. It won't all be focused on him. The fact that he chose the Dodgers in the end, that tells me in the end it really wasn't an issue. I do think, a lot of the speculation was obviously based on the fact that Joe Wolf said that, his agent. But I think the way he phrased it was more that he was kind of open to it, or that it might be good or something. I'm sure it was something he considered, but ultimately, obviously by the choice that he made, it wasn't a do or die type thing.
Dylan, how was your weekend? How did the weekend culminate? How did everything go for you? Was it okay?
Yeah, I was in Philadelphia with the Rams, so they got knocked out, and I was on a very tight deadline, and I was very, very scared that Matthew Stafford was going to throw for a touchdown at the end and ruin the column that I'd written. So the fact that I got out of that, okay, I guess was good.
How was the?
Oh, there we go. No, there we are. There we are. The snow was brutal, man. Well, the good thing is I stayed at that airport Marriott, so I never really had to. The only time I left the airport was to go to the game. Fortunately, I'll say this, man. There was somebody there really nice that had one of those scrapers. Obviously, those of us from LA, we forget about the scraper. So yeah, we come outside, our car is covered in snow, and fortunately, the nice gentleman from Philadelphia, lent us his scraper, and so we were able to get out fine.
Good. I'm glad we had something positive from Philly. See all the bad stuff about about Philly fans, Eagle fans, all that stuff. But a scraper, that's like a 16th birthday present up here. And we don't even get that much snow. Like Pennsylvania, I live about 45 minutes from the stadium. We don't even get that much snow compared to like the Northeast or even like an hour north of me. But 16th birthday, you got to get a scraper. So if you see somebody turning 16 in LA, just tell them they're not getting a scraper because they don't need one.
Yeah, well, we might need it for some of the ash that's been falling here. I mean, I shouldn't joke about that, but it's been,
Yeah.
I'm in Pasadena right now, and all that stuff was like a few miles, and it's weird, right? With the winds, every now and then it still comes falling. So, obviously a lot of people have been affected by that, and I think everybody in town here, our thoughts kind of go out to them.
Yeah, we're thinking about obviously everyone affected by that. Obviously, I'm sure you have friends and people that you know that have been affected. So, Dylan, thanks for taking the time, though. Appreciate it. Really great insight on Roki's story.
No, thank you so much for having me on.